Welcome to Thessalonia Talks. So, as I ask everyone, how would you introduce yourself to a new person who comes to Thessalonia?
Um, New person to Thessalonia. I'm the guitarist here. You'll see me up there on Sundays playing the guitar. Um, I am the son of Minister Manita. You'll probably see her quite a bit. Um,
Do you have a name?
yeah, I'm Jeremiah. In terms of at Thessalonia, I feel like that's how I would introduce myself. Other places, obviously, is different, but
Yeah. How long you been playing the guitar?
I've been playing the guitar since I think 2013. So almost 10 years now, or more than 10 years now.
Wow, wow. Same year I graduated college. Now I feel like maybe I should have picked up the guitar and like I could be as good as you.
Yeah.
What made you pick it up?
Um, so my sister was given an acoustic guitar by my aunt's ex-husband. And she went to college. So maybe it was 2014 because she went to college the same year I went to high school. But she left the guitar back. And then I would just pick it up and um, I would like play a song but like only on one string, like the melody of a song, but like going up and down the fret on one string. And then I just kept playing it.
Have you ever taken music theory or
No,
you just have an ear for music?
yeah, I would say so. I mean, I've looked at like maybe a few YouTube videos here and there, but nothing about like music theory. And just conversations with my cousins or SIPO and stuff like that. But never took any lessons or anything serious for it, just by ear and just by watching and learning.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any aspirations musically?
Um, Not in terms of like professionally. I do want to just be better and also have an anointing. And I know that an anointing comes from being filled with the Spirit, but also I think it ultimately sounds better when you're better as well. And so it's just in terms of just getting better, learning a bunch of different stuff. I mean, music knowledge is endless.
Mm-hmm.
Even the best always still have something else to learn. There's something to pick apart from it. And so for me, it's just being better, knowing how to play anything, um, like all styles, different type of chords, being able to, I want to say carry a service on the guitar, but because I know our type of, I guess, denomination or whatever, like the songs we sing is not really like guitar songs. They're definitely piano heavy and things like that, but it can be done if you can play the guitar well enough.
Word, word. You mentioned your sister. How many siblings do you have?
A lot. I have 8 siblings.
8 siblings. Where do you fall in that line?
I'm numero 4.
Wow, wow. So what was growing up like with so many siblings?
Um, Going down the gamut hole. Growing up with so many siblings, I mean, it was interesting. Um, Again, I'm number 4, so the oldest is 7 years older than me, and the youngest is 4 years older than me. And so, I think when I was younger, I was by default always with the younger ones, but I was like somewhat the ringleader of the younger ones. I don't know. But I would always like rope them into like doing stuff. Like I was always writing like plays and songs and stuff like that. And so I always had them acting. I had like a Samsung tablet and I just like record and do stuff. Or just like playing around like makeshift things or imaginary whatever. But it was interesting. We were all homeschooled. And so a lot of the time with each other. So a lot of arguments, as you can imagine, a lot of fights. But it wasn't bad. I mean, we all shared a room for quite some time. I think until I was maybe 10. Um, And so we have like 5 bunk beds in a big room, you know, and you just do sibling stuff.
Yeah.
I always found it funny. My sisters would be changing and be like, you could be completely minding your business. They'd be like, don't turn around, I'm changing. But once someone speaks to you, your automatic reaction is to turn around and look like that. So I'm like, you could have just not said anything and you would have been fine. But stuff like that, you know.
Do you you mentioned like writing plays. Did you ever participate in any plays? You were homeschooled until high school.
Mm-hmm.
In high school, did you do any acting or anything with plays?
I didn't participate in any plays at school. I went to high school for film, and so definitely did some acting in either my own films or other students' films, but nothing serious. And then obviously here at the church, we had cantatas and stuff like that, and I've acted in those, but
Yeah.
Nothing too crazy.
Interesting. And so, going through high school, college, now you're a graduate of college. Where'd you go to school?
I went to school at SUNY Purchase.
Okay. And you're a couple years out.
Mm-hmm.
What have you wanted to do when you've quote unquote gotten older?
I think it has somewhat changed, but not changed at the same time. Sorry. Obviously, as like I said, I went to high school for film, so it was a specialized art school. So I majored in film for 3 out of the 4 years. The first year is called a design foundation year, where we go through all the art mediums. Even though we auditioned for the specific art that we wanted to do, they still wanted us to know, how to dabble in different things. So I learned how to draw and stuff like that first year. And then in college, I majored in literature and film. The plan was to major in film, but there were some mishaps with the applications and stuff. And I also got recruited to play volleyball. And so sports became a big part of my life in high school. I played 3 sports, and, volleyball is one that I started to stand out in. And I went and got recruited to play that in college. And so the goal was always to do something in film. It would have probably been more on the traditional film side, with making movies in Hollywood and stuff like that. But as I got to college, like I said, sports really became important for me. And I really started to stand out in volleyball. My freshman year, I got Rookie of the Year for the Skyline, and we went to the championships. Sophomore year, and I was leading the team and all the stats and stuff like that. And then COVID happened. And so when COVID happened, that kind of changed a lot of things. So after my freshman year, I started working at a summer camp in Connecticut. COVID happened the next year, and I went back to that summer camp. I was like 1 out of 15 counselors that were there. And so long story short, I worked at that summer camp for about 5 years. Being out there in Connecticut, I started working at a high school as a paraprofessional and a coach. And so I found myself in this scene of, I don't want to say childcare, but
Youth development.
Youth development, I guess. And so, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm a people person. I'm an extrovert, so I like meeting people. I like, doing stuff. And being out there, no one really knew me from, birth. Being here at the church, especially being homeschooled, you didn't meet other kids your age till high school and stuff like that. And even in high school, I was still, trying to find out who I was and things like that. And even so in college. And so going out to Connecticut, it was like kind of a breath of fresh air. I could just be like, oh, I'm me, I'm this. You don't know who I am. This is a fresh slate. And so that was kind of cool. And so a lot of the kids really enjoyed my presence and like who I was. And also being Black and being out there, not a lot of diversity out there. So it was something new for them, but I thoroughly enjoyed the youth development scene. And then I was started coaching volleyball. They needed more coaches. They needed a basketball coach, so I started coaching basketball. And then some of the girls from both the basketball and the volleyball team were playing lacrosse, and they didn't have a coach. They were like, oh, come coach. So I really got to expand. And so working with kids was something that I saw was a possibility, but also the sports realm. And so after experiencing all of that, and I still wanted to have an aspect of film in it, it's kind of mashed together into helping kids get recruited for college. That's basically what I want to do. And so there's aspects of like filming their games, creating highlight videos, talking to them about what schools they want to go to, like D1 and D3, and the perks and the pros and cons of all of that. Um, and so, long story short, it's kind of changed, but it hasn't. There's aspects of film in it. There's aspects of working with kids in it. There's aspects of sports in it. And so it's kind of all moving into one. But the challenging thing is that there isn't really a position as such right now. There are recruiters that recruit to a certain college, but I don't want to do that. I want to go from the high school end or more just interpersonal end where I'm with the athletes trying to find the right school for them rather than trying to get them to go to a certain school. And so I think the choices are vast for college. I think there's so many colleges that a lot of people don't even know about. They only think about the big names or the names that their parents probably went to, or, just that one school they've always thought about going to. But there are so many colleges. I think about the Midwest. There's so many colleges that nobody even knows about. And I think people often sacrifice when they're going to college certain things because they want certain things. And I think there's always there's a right fit for someone. You just have to look. And so even in terms of, a lot of athletes want to play D1 because that's just where, that they think that's where it is. If you're a D1 athlete, you made it. But D1 is very rigorous with the schedule of sports. D1 is also, it's two-sided because D1, you obviously have people who are really good at the sport, but I've also seen D3 teams that have beat D1 teams. They just didn't have the money, which is kind of what separates D1 and D3. But, I think about even if you have a scholarship or something like that, you get hurt, you lose the scholarship, you're not playing, or you are a decent player, but you're on the bench for your first 2 years because you have seniority playing and stuff like that. So those are things that people don't really take into account. Meanwhile, like D3 or D2 is a little bit less rigorous. You can focus on your school a little bit more. And also think about the social life. So that kind of break it down into three different things is academic, social life, and, the sports level. And basically what you're looking for. And, so people want to go to a school with a major that they have and play the sport. And sometimes they can't find those two. And so they'll either sacrifice the sport for their major or sacrifice their major for their sport. Sorry, my nose is a little stuffed. And so essentially just finding the school that's kind of right for them. And also socially, I even think about the school that I went to purchase. I got recruited for the sport, but the academics was not necessarily challenging for me. I kind of just cruised through there. But also socially, I really enjoyed my first year because it was something new. I met people. I started dating this girl that I shouldn't have dated. But by sophomore year, especially when COVID happened, there wasn't much to the school for me anymore because the sport wasn't there. We weren't playing. And so I was like, man, why did I go to this school? But I sacrificed a lot because playing volleyball was really important to me. But there's probably definitely a better school that I could have gone to that would have fit me better socially, academically, and pushed me a lot more. And I even think in the position I'm where I am now, I had a literature degree, which was like, why? And so even like trying to find jobs now, like my like it seems like it's all over the place, literature degree, film stuff, working with kids and stuff like this. Like it's not all concentrated because I was just, sacrificing or trying to take the easy route out and stuff like that. And so I really want to help athletes get to a point where they know what college they want to go to, that has their major, that has the sports they want to do, and they know they're going to fit there. They're not going to be depressed 5 months in, want to drop out and stuff like that. And also creating a plan B, especially for those D1 athletes who are good enough to go, and their plan is to go professional. And not saying that they can't, but the statistics of athletes that go professional and that don't is is a number that they don't really think of. And so what's their plan B so that when they don't go professional, or if they don't go professional, they have a fallback and they're not working at McDonald's or something like that. So really just helping them out, just understanding what the pros and cons are, what they really want out of life. And yeah.
How'd you come to Thessalonia?
I was born here, literally born in the pew. No, stop. My grandmother came here. I had my mom. Well, she had my mom before she came here, but they moved up here. My mom was here most of her life. She gave birth to me. I've been here all my life.
How did you come back to Thessalonia? Some people go to college, do the college thing, and they don't return.
It's interesting because part of me wants to say that I never left, but I know mentally I did leave. It was never an option if I was like coming back or not. Not because, I was forced to go, but, I've been here all my life. It kind of baffles me how some people can't come back after they've been here all their life. But, I've been involved in ministry, so I guess that is also a reason of coming back. Like that's just been the lifestyle that I've lived all throughout high school, all throughout my youth, being in ministry. And so being connected with something that's bigger than myself. And that's also always been something that kept me grounded in my faith and my walk, even like the accountability of, it sounds crazy, but like sometimes it's like, I don't care about me. Like I could do whatever I want. And like, that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to figure out the right words. Like in terms of even like think about life group, leading life group, being over that has helped me, be more consistent in my reading and stuff like that. Whether if it was just worried about myself and regarding my own walk, I can be like, okay, I can put this off today. I got this other stuff to do. But now knowing that I'm accountable for other people and that I need to know more, that's going to help me read more and stuff like that. And so being involved has always kept me accountable and tied back to the church rather than, if I was just coming from my own walk. I could see how that would be easy to just, if something else came up that was more important to me, of course, I'm going to put that on the back burner. And so me being a people person and caring about that, I think that's kept me tied. And so throughout college, I wasn't coming every Sunday because I didn't have a car back then, and the train ride would have been quite a bit on a Sunday. And so, obviously I come back for holidays and stuff and I go to church, but definitely wasn't thinking about, being a witness or ministering and stuff like that in college. Quite the opposite. I wouldn't say I spiraled, but definitely was not, being a good advocate for the Christian faith, I guess. And so that's when I say mentally I wasn't at the church, but I don't think it was ever a question as if I was going to come back. And then COVID definitely helped with that, with everything being on pause and the church being like one of the only things open during COVID. And so coming back and, how we set up the mini services. And so I was playing the guitar for one of the services. And so that helped me be there. And then when I went out to Connecticut, still wasn't necessarily coming back every weekend, but I was coming back like every other weekend, mainly for my ex that I was dating then. And then when we broke up, I don't know. I think I might have, taken some time away from New York for like maybe a month. So I didn't come back then. And then the cantata and all that stuff. And then started reconnecting with my girlfriend now. And so that also helped me get back down here every weekend and just be at church. And so, again, it was never really for me, which is like, I don't know why I'm like that, but accountability is great. Just say that.
When would you say you've become more serious about God?
Probably COVID. Definitely, I think that that tape that pastor was sent was sent out to, I don't know how many people it was sent out to, but it got sent to my mom, and she had us all listen to that. And so that was kind of shaking to the core. But I think even before that, I remember talking with my ex and like trying to get her to like, you know, get into church, and I was sending her scriptures every day. And so that was kind of pushing for me because I know that, well, number one, that we both weren't living the lifestyle that we should have lived, but she was Catholic, but she didn't really have like strong views about God and stuff like that. It was very loose. So it was definitely pushing for me to try to get her at a point where, you know, she understood who God was and took it a little bit seriously, because I know it helped me take it seriously as well. But I think that was a point where I started to try to really get closer throughout COVID. And then it got challenging because I was in Connecticut and, you know, around people constantly who weren't living that lifestyle. And so, yes, I'd come back every week, but from Monday to Saturday, you're with people who aren't necessarily worried about that. So, you know, doing your daily devotion or spending time to take it away, you know, and not here to be at life group at 5 a.m. prayers and stuff like that. So it was kind of hard to still be consistent and be serious about it. But I guess since August, moving back since Ghana, I've been able to be more consistent. So I guess I can really say that that's when I've been serious about it, and especially being in the season of my life, you know, looking for a job, you know, looking to be engaged, looking to be married, all that stuff, looking for apartments. It's really driving me to be in prayer more, to be in touch with God more, to seek scriptures about certain things, about what marriage is about, you know, about what I should be doing in my life, what job I should necessarily be having, if it should be tied to ministry and stuff like that. So I'm taking all the weirdest roundabout ways to answer these questions, but maybe I would say maybe August of last year. I don't know. I think that's when I became serious about it for myself. I think probably since COVID is when I became serious about it in general for everyone else, and just, you know, getting closer. But
this can be a challenging question for people who've grown up in the church, born and raised. I know personally. But the question is, when do you think you first became a believer? Like, when do you think, can you remember when it became real for you? Or, you know, has it just, how would you respond to that question?
I've seen a lot growing up in the church. And so I think, you know, between going on retreats, the Spirit always definitely met us there. I remember going, you know, when pastors used to go out and take a choir with them, you know, multiple times. I remember going to one church, we're singing, and this demonic filled person came running through the doors, and like that was an experience. And so, you know, I've experienced things where, you know, I know this stuff is real. But I think in terms of, what was the question?
When did you start to believe God was real?
Mm.
If you can remember.
I don't think that there was ever a part that I didn't think he was real.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely know that there's some times where I'm like, that kind of seems selfish. Like, why would God do that? Or like, thinking about situations where even hearing people negate Christianity, and I'm like, that's kind of a good point there. Like, that made me think a little bit. But there's always been something in me that's like, yeah, God is real. Even when people are like, yeah, that may be that one point where I'm like, okay, that's good. But the rest of their arguments like, dog, what are you talking about? Like, you sound stupid. And again, I've seen stuff, I experienced stuff. I've experienced the Spirit being in the room, you know, how it just melts your heart.
For the young people who haven't been to a retreat, can you describe that experience or tell us a story of an anecdote of what it's like?
Yeah, the retreats were pretty awesome. I mean, growing up in the church was pretty awesome in general. I think I was blessed to be in a time of numerous youth. I've been thinking about the youth right now, and I'm like, I don't know how they're enjoying this, because there was always something to do for us, and the retreats was one of them. And so there was always like 50, 60 of us going up to a mountain, being secluded, no phones, being forced to experience each other and get into the word. So we would spend a weekend at a retreat site, and we'd have sessions, throughout the day with different youth leaders. And the youth retreat usually had a theme. And so they were focused about, certain thing. And so we would go through sessions which were created to be like more fun and more immersive. So I remember, I think one of them was with Uncle Lavelle, and we went on like kind of a hike and talking about stuff. And I remember talking about the foundation, and he had us like build like, I guess he just came upon a pile of rocks. I don't know, or he like planted there, but we like tried to build a foundation out of rocks and stuff like that, and was like testing whose foundation was strong enough and stuff like that. But so things like that was immersive, but built in with scripture. And it was throughout the whole weekend. So you probably had like 6 sessions in a day. And then we'd meet for like the service at night. The food was usually buffets. There would also be time for free time. So I remember basketball was a huge thing at the retreats always. It's like, all right, when's basketball time? Who we cooking on the court? They usually had a pool, so swimming was also always there. But it was kind of like a vacation with your friends that you grew up with the whole time, and you got to get in the word, and so usually Saturday nights was the service that, people were out on the floor crying out. And I don't know why. Like, it's kind of like amazing that it was like without fail, it would always happen. And I also came to the realization that it was always like, and towards the end of May, and I think it's the day of Pentecost. Was it 40 days after Jesus went up? Is that what it is? Is that what it is? You just told me yes or no.
Something like that.
But the retreat was always like around that time after Easter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that's when the Spirit fell. And it always seemed for us like that was our Pentecost. Like, no matter what, like we were there getting closer. We were secluded. We were in that upper room, and the Spirit always met us there. And people, were, I wouldn't say being saved, because I think we were all already saved being there, but it was definitely like a coming to Jesus moment. Like, we're getting closer. We're realizing that what we've done for the last months or whatever, the way we've been living, it could be better. All the guilt and the stuff is sitting on our hearts, and God is just melting away, speaking to us. People were speaking in tongues for the first time being there. Some people were laying hands for the first time being there. It was like amazing to see youth being filled with the Spirit, like at that young age. And so, yeah, it was great.
What do you, or can you tell me a story about when you felt like at your lowest, and how God brought you out of that space?
Honestly, it's kind of been this whole past year. And I'll tell you why, because a lot of things have come easy for me. All throughout high school, again, homeschooled all up into high school. Never played organized sports, never been really a part of anything outside of the church. And so getting to high school, freshman year, I kind of took it easy. But sophomore year, I went ham, started playing volleyball, started playing basketball, started playing bowling. Applied for NHS, applied for student government. And so sophomore year, I'm playing 3 sports. I'm part of NHS. I'm vice president of my grade. And that happened throughout high school. Each year I would grow. By senior year, I was captain of all 3 sports. I was vice president of the senior grade. I was, they didn't really have presidents of NHS, but I was a part of the team that was, running it with the teacher that was there. Again, through college, was captain, was rookie of the year, like getting all these accolades. By the time COVID happened, I was only 20. I was working out of high school with no degree. I was coaching. I was doing all this stuff that seemed successful. And so for a long time, my worth to me was tied to my success. So, I'm doing things out of the ordinary that a lot of people weren't able to do. And so even at the camp too, working my way up to being the day camp director, and that was only in year 5. And a lot of people at that camp went to camp as kids, so they're there for 10, 12 years. I never went to that camp as a kid, and I grew up in the ranks and stuff like that. So God has blessed me with being in positions of success, but I think I didn't always see it as God blessing me. I always saw it as, I'm dope. Like, I guess, I don't know. And so for a long time, my worth for me was tied to, the success and, being a leader or having this job or, buying a car for myself at 20, which is like not something that a lot of people get to do. And so this past year, with, I felt like God was speaking to me to leave Connecticut. And so coming back from Connecticut and, just driving Uber, and not having the job that I thought I would have leaving Connecticut. And so I've been in a humble place of, God, what's going on? And so even in Connecticut, there was a situation that happened where it's like, it was just completely mind boggling and stupid that it even happened, because essentially a situation happened that I was accused of something that I just didn't do. It was like not even in my character. But they had to like investigate it and all this other stuff. And it was like that whole week, like they tell you, okay, you're going to get home. We're investigating this. And they don't tell you anything else. And so this whole week is like, okay, what the heck am I being investigated about? Like, I know in my core, like I didn't do anything, but it's like anybody could have made up any lie. and so even that was like, I lived by myself in Connecticut. So I'm like in my room all week. God, what's going on? Like, what's going on? And eventually the investigation came out that whatever the allegation was, it was false. But even returning back the next week, obviously the word got out that there was an investigation on, and no one knew what the truth was. So there's rumors going on about what happened, what I did or whatever and stuff like that. So that was definitely interesting for my character, because for me, like, again, I'm a people person. I really care about what my character is to people. And so I felt like my image was like tainted. And so for me, that was like a big thing. I'm like, what's going on? Like, I'm not that person, and the fact that people would believe me to be that person was like kind of heartbreaking to me. But all in all, with that situation, I'm like, okay, God, what are you saying here? Like, what's going on? Because it did not need to happen at all in the slightest. Like, I keep thinking about it. I'm like, there was no reason for that situation to happen. But in praying, I felt like God was telling me like it was time to leave Connecticut, because there was stuff about to happen that would have solidified me a little bit more in Connecticut. So I was living at the campgrounds that I was at for free. But it was at a point where people were trying to live there too. And so the camp director was like, okay, this can't happen like anymore. So I was getting ready to be a dorm parent. So the school that I worked at had international students, and they had like a dorm. And so you could be a dorm parent. So I was getting ready I literally had an interview lined up the same week that happened to be a dorm parent, to live there. I think there was also something else that was about to happen that would have like kind of just solidified me being there for a little bit longer. And so I think I was praying and like, God, why is this happening? And I came to the conclusion, or I felt like God was telling me like, it's time to move back to New York. And that's been something that me and my girlfriend had conversations about anyways. And so I'm like, man, when you have a praying girl, it's crazy. I'm like, you made this happen. Like, that's your fault. And so that's what happened to me moving back to New York. But within all that, I started looking for jobs before I even moved back. And so it seemed like I had something set up, and it didn't. And so I'm like, God, did you really have this, like, have me to move back to New York for me to be in this position of like being humbled? Like, it's not a fun position to be in. But I think it has, again, helped me, like I said before, cry out to God, seek him for what the next steps are, especially with even, wanting to be engaged and stuff like that. And it's like, that's not something that I'm taking lightly, especially like that priest of the house, like role. Like that's a big deal for me. And so even like with thinking about, being engaged, it's like me getting myself right, getting ready to, like I see these videos on TikToks where this girl is like, she's like waking up my husband, pretending to like be under spiritual attack, which is like a weird thing to be like. But he'll like wake up and like just start going in like praying, and she's like, it's a joke, and he's like just going ham praying. But I think about like what would happen if like my household was under spiritual attack? Like the moment we get married, the devil's attacking us. Like how am I responding to that as the priest of the house? And so I take that seriously. But so yeah, so this season of my life has brought me to a position of being humbled, which was, I think, probably a problem for me all throughout high school and some of college. And so I don't remember what the question was, but
but you see God's hand in it.
yeah. And I think it's funny too, because, and I don't think that it wasn't God, but even when I got out to Connecticut and all the blessings were coming, you know, I was able to buy my car. I started out as a sub, and then they asked me to be a para. And then, no, I started out as a coach just for the freshman team of volleyball. Once the season was over, I was like, okay, what am I doing now? So they needed subs because teachers weren't coming in. It was in the height of COVID. So they asked me to be a sub. They were like, wow, you're really good with the kids. You want to be a para? So I kind of got a little bit of bump of a pay raise as a para. And then did that for the whole year. The next year came around, started as a para again, but it was kind of different because I was kind of a teacher now. I had my own classroom, and they had me doing like kind of like a support group where if kids were failing or they needed extra time or stuff like that, they came to my class. I worked with them one-on-one. It was probably like a class of like 6, 7, 8 people. But started doing that. Then I started coaching more sports, more basketball, lacrosse, you know, buying the car. I got off my, you know, my parents' phone plan to try to save them money. I put some of my siblings on their phone plan, on my phone plan. You know, I bought myself a phone, bought my sister a phone. You know, I was doing all these things. Brain fart. And yeah, so all these things were happening, and I'm like, wow, God is really blessing me. I remember getting up and telling testimony about it all, like, you know, kind of from, you know, I'm doing all this stuff at 20 years old, where I feel like, you know, when I'm looking around and looking at other 20-year-olds, they're not doing this. So I'm like, you know, this is really a blessing. Even the fact that I was in Connecticut at the time during COVID, where, you know, they opened it up for 10 counselors to come back and be at camp. And I was one of those counselors, and that was only my second year at camp. And so I'm like, there are so many, like at least 150 counselors they could have chosen from that have been at camp for such a long time. And that was only my second year, and they chose me. So I'm like, okay, that was already a blessing, which it is. I still think it's a blessing. And then being out there and being able to live out there and, you know, getting the job at the high school and doing all this stuff, I'm like, wow, you know, God's hand is in this. And I think that me being in Connecticut was, for that time, it allowed me to grow into the person, you know, gave me a lot of independence to grow up and do the things that I did and be the person that I am now, even with being with my girlfriend now. Like, we've, you know, talked all throughout high school and stuff like that, but it always seemed like it wouldn't fit. And I think because I was more immature and like more, you know, self-arrogant and stuff like that, and just didn't understand what life was about. And so being out there in Connecticut allowed me to be independent, grow up a little bit more, be more mature. And so coming back, even reconnecting with her, I think was timely. And so God's hand definitely was in it. Even to pulling me out of Connecticut, you know, having me there for that time and moving me back. God's hand was definitely in it all.
Amen. What are 5 of your favorite things?
5 of my favorite things. I know that's a weird question for me. I like a lot of things. I mean, I like music. I think I'm not gonna explain them. I like music. I like sports. I like food. I like just being around people. And did I say film? I guess I could say film.
Right. And I'm remembering now. You mentioned what order you're in. You're a twin.
I am a twin.
And so your twin came out first?
I came out first.
You came out first.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
13 minutes, I think.
A lot of people shocked when they find out that you're a twin?
Yeah, a lot of people in Connecticut when they're like, "You're a twin? What the heck?" Um, Even more so when I'm like, "It's a girl," and they're like, "Oh, it's a girl." Um, and then they're like, "How's it being a twin?" And I'm like, "It doesn't feel anything to me because I have so many siblings." Especially because we're all pretty close in age. Like from each person, I think we're all like 2 years apart. So like my oldest brother and my sister, I think they're like 2-3 years apart. And from my sister to my sister is like 2-3 years apart. And from me to my sister. So we're like not all like super spread out. So like even the age differences and being around each other, even like I said, from me to my youngest is 4 years. And so we all did stuff together. And so it was nothing like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do special stuff with my twin because we're closest in age and, you know, we share the womb and stuff like that. Like we were all brothers and sisters. So, you know, being a twin never felt different to me.
You don't read each other's minds. You don't know what she's going to do in the song while you're playing guitar and she's leading. You're like, twin. You don't have the twin connection.
No, even though my girlfriend says we do a lot of the similar stuff, but I think that's just part of being siblings.
Well, thank you for coming into the podcast room. This was just a little hors d'oeuvre, little sprinkle of who you are, a little introduction. We'll leave it at this for now.
Okay, it was a pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to Thessalonia Talks. If this blessed you today, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe, for we have much more to share with you. And send the link to this talk to someone you think may be blessed by it. God bless you, and see you next time.